A massive prophecy in Jerusalem might have been just fulfilled, or they just figured out something that can fulfill the prophecy, and it's absolutely fascinating stuff, guys. So buckle up, make sure to keep on watching because this one is wild. And it all stems from this Bible verse right here that I'm gonna read to you, and then we're gonna react to Blake Woods here. Zechariah 14:4 says, "On the day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will split apart, making a wide valley running from east to west. Half the mountain will move toward the north and half toward the south." Oh my goodness, people might be thinking, what in the world, how is this possible? They have just found evidence for this to be the case. Absolutely wild stuff.
Now, on the Mount of Olives, if you remember, in Acts chapter 1 in the Bible, it states that two of the angels basically appears to the disciples of Jesus as Jesus was descending up into the clouds when he was speaking to his Father in the Mount of Olives before his crucifixion. The angels basically informed to his disciples that this is going to be the location in which Jesus will be returning once again, and they were actually referring to the second coming. A lot of people believe that that is going to be the location where the second coming is going to take place. Now, the Mount of Olives is located all the way towards the east of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Now, there's this prophecy in the Bible that actually states that the Messiah of the Jews is going to be returning through this gate, which is located in Jerusalem, which is right next to the Temple Mount. And this is also the same location through which Jesus rode on a donkey and entered his way into Jerusalem. Now, stick with me here because this is where things are getting absolutely wild. Because back in 1517, there was this guy named Sultan Suleiman who actually conquered Jerusalem, and he was an Islamist. So he basically believed that the Messiah of the Jews is going to be entering through this particular gate. So he was so afraid that he decided to go ahead and seal off the entire gate completely using these rocks. And that's the reason why the gate right now is completely sealed off. And
that's insane that Muslims would take the Bible so serious, these prophets so serious, that they literally close off the gate. What in the world? Which is just I still don't understand though, that they think that the Bible is the inspired word of God and it's from God. Why would they think that they need to go against it? I mean, I know why, because it's the Quran completely contradicts the Bible, but it's just things like that. And obviously they're against the Jews.
This is currently being used as a cemetery for the Islamists. Now, this is where things get absolutely interesting, because the Bible actually states that when the Messiah of the Jews is going to be returning, he will walk right past through this gate. And when he does it, there will be a massive earthquake, and it's going to be splitting entire Mount Olives in half. And this particular gate is going to be broken in half. Now, that's basically what the Jews prophecy states. Wow. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but in 1964, the Jews actually planned to build a massive hotel right on top of the peak of Mount of Olives. Now, they did this because they thought that maybe they could attract more tourists. Since Jerusalem is a holy land, of course, pilgrims and worshippers, they're obviously going to come in, and if they have a hotel all the way up there in Mount of Olives, it could profit them in a lot of ways. So here's what's
100%. Imagine waking up and looking out at the Temple Mount every morning. That would be pretty awesome. I mean, seeing the Temple Mount is so crazy and surreal. Walking on the Mount of Olives is so surreal too. Doesn't it say the Dead Sea will have life in it as well? It says here in Ezekiel that, "Then he said to me, this river flows east through the desert into the valley of the Dead Sea. The waters of the stream will make the salty waters of the Dead Sea fresh and pure." That's insane. So does that have any correlation with this opening up?
Because as the Israeli government was trying to build this massive hotel right on top of Mount Olive, they decided to go ahead and do a geological survey all across the Mount of Olives. And what they just found is absolutely mind-boggling, because there is this massive fault line underneath the ground that goes all the way from Mount Olives exactly towards the eastern gate. So this travels all the way from the east to west west, and the fault line starts from Mount of Olives, and it also ends exactly at the Eastern Gate, which is the same location where the prophecy says that the Messiah is going to be walking right through it, and the eastern wall is going to be completely broken in half because there will be a massive earthquake. If you read the prophecy which is mentioned in Zechariah chapter 14 verse 4, it very clearly predicts thousands of years ago that this same location, which is Mount of Olives, would one day split in two, all the way from...
And the fact that we see, based off of our geological location and geographical studies, that there is a fault line. There could be an earthquake anytime there. I would not be wanting to build anything up there for the future, I guess.
East to west, and the geological survey that was just done is also showing a straight fracture line that starts from Mount of Olives and it ends all the way towards the Eastern Gate, which is not only the same direction in which there's a possibility of maybe if there ends up being some sort of an earthquake, it's basically going to be splitting the entire Mount of Olives in half, and that splitting is going to be leading all the way towards the Eastern Gate, because there is a massive fault line that goes straight up to the Eastern Gate, which could at the end of the day end up cracking open the mountain as well as the entire line that leads up to the Eastern Gate, and the Eastern Gate is going to be completely broken as well. So the wall that the Muslims have built right now near the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where the Eastern Gate is located, they basically decided to seal off the gate. But as far as what the geological survey mentions, it seems like this fault line in future someday it could actually be breaking down this massive wall that has been closed up, and that's going to happen at the exact same time when the Mount of Olives is going to be breaking in two halves.
That's a lesson though for so many people. If they think that they can completely go against God and they're going to do their thing on their own and defile God, you think that's going to work? God literally owns everything. He created everything. It doesn't matter if you build this massive structure or not. God can do whatever he wants. He can use natural resources just to knock it down.
Now that's exactly what Zechariah's prophecy already states, that the Mount of Olives is going to be broken in two halves, and that's when the Messiah is going to be entering through the eastern gates of Jerusalem. Now that's just absolutely crazy, because there is no way that this whole thing is naturally just made up. It just seems like it was conveniently made by God himself, that he had to just put down this fault line that leads all the way from the Mount Olives to the gate, so that someday in the future, when the Messiah arrives, when the second coming happens, this is going to be the same location and the same path in which he's going to be traveling. And as he travels, if there ends up being an earthquake, it's basically going to be fulfilling the prophecy that's already present in the Bible. And it's all just going to happen in a very natural way. It's not even going to be something that's unnatural, supernatural. It's already pre-planned. It's already there, and nature has already fulfilled the prophecy in itself.
That's
so now
crazy.
This in itself is a massive, massive proof that the Bible is indeed absolutely real.
After I watch Josh Horton here explain the Mount of Olives history, and then we go to this guy named Josh Wander explain, he says, is the Mount of Olives beginning to split? That's the title of this video. What in the world is going on? And he's standing there right now.
Is maybe the most mind-blowing Bible fact I've ever learned in my entire life. I've been waiting 6 years to get this out because it never fits in a sermon. Jesus ascended into heaven when he was standing on, in Acts chapter 1, the Mount of Olives. And he specifically said in Acts chapter 1, he said, I'm going to come in the exact same way that I go. And there are other prophecies, I'm going to read them here in a second, that specifically make it sound like it's clear when Jesus returns and he descends, he's going to descend and stand right on top of the Mount of Olives again. Let's go a layer deeper. So if you're ever there on the Mount of Olives, the Mount of Olives is east of the Temple Mount. So in Ezekiel 43, it's one of the passages that Jewish people for millennia have been like, that's a messianic prophecy. Listen really close, bro. This is insane. Then the man brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing the east, and it was shut. It is to remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. And when it says has entered through it, this is prophetic foreshortening, talking about a future event as if it were in the past. This right here is the East Gate as seen from when you're standing on the Mount of Olives. That's literally what you're looking at right there, East Gate right there. Now, you look at it, you're like, where's the gate, bro? Because it's all bricked up. The guy's name was Sultan Suleiman. He conquered Jerusalem in 1517. The Islamic guy had fear of the future Messiah coming and this specific prophecy. And he's the dude that bricked up the East Gate because he was going, I'm going to make sure that prophecy can never get fulfilled. Okay, now check this out. Zechariah 14:3-5. His feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west, making a large valley. Half of the mountain shall move to the north and half of it to the south. In 1964, look this up. There's a million news stories about this. These Jewish dudes want to build a hotel on the top of the Mount of Olives. They've got to get a geological survey done before they build on the top of a historic mountain. When they do the geological survey, they discover that there is a fault line that runs right underneath the Mount of Olives. It is an east to west fault line that runs right from the top of the Mount of Olives right to the east. When Jesus returns, he'll descend on that mountain. And I think what's going to happen is the Bible talks about the earth and the heavens being shaken. I think that in fulfillment of this prophecy, that whole valley will just do this. All those stones that dude put in front of that thing are going to fall right down. And he's going to walk right through that thing, stand on that Temple Mount and be like, where are you at now? This legit is maybe the most mind-blowing.
So exciting. What in the world? Man, God does not do anything on accident. He always has a plan. People might think, oh, that's impossible. God can never tell the future. Well, how would they ever know if it's on a fault line there? How would they know unless it's God? They didn't have the technology back then when they were writing that. No, that's what's so mind-blowing. So now I want to play this video from Josh Wander talking about, is the Mount of Olives beginning to split? Let's check it out.
This is Josh Wander from Israel 365. I'm here on the Mount of Olives, directly across from the Temple Mount, and I'm here in order to investigate what is happening as a result of the earthquakes that have taken place all over the northern part in Turkey, down through the African-Syrian rift, and into Syria, Lebanon, and here in Israel. As you can see, I'm here on the Mount of Olives, and I'm looking for cracks that you can see actually here in the flooring. If you look at the road over here, you can see that there's cracks that are starting to crack on the road. There's some large potholes that have been started to form over here. The last earthquake that was here was in 1927. In 1927, there was a huge earthquake, which epicenter was in Jericho, and it came through Jerusalem, actually knocking off the roof of what they call Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount.
Wow.
This was a huge earthquake. Approximately every 100 years, there is a major earthquake here in this region. So as these earthquakes are unfolding in and around the Middle East, we are very, very cognizant.
Wait, so the last one was in 1927. It's almost 2027. Almost 100 years. He says every 100 years. Woo, that could be coming up real quick. Is it 2025? 2026, around the corner.
What's going on here? And we are looking for any cracks. This is especially due to the fact that the prophecy of Zechariah 14:4 states that in the end of days there will be a huge earthquake which will split this mountain in half. And we are here today looking for those cracks, investigating more whether this perhaps is the unfolding of the actual prophecy of Zechariah himself.
That's literally crazy stuff, guys. Is this an end times prophecy fulfillment? Is this signs that Jesus will come very soon? I would love to know what you guys think in the comments below, but God does not make mistakes. He is in control. So guys, I encourage you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Always remember, guys, Jesus loves you. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I know we can do it with your help. So thank you so much for all the love and support. It means the world. Have an amazing day, and God bless.